the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for our invocation. Pastor Todd Forrest from Fountain Hills Christian Center is here with us tonight.
Thank you so much. Shall we pray? Lord, I thank you for giving us another day to live in our community and to be able to enjoy the presence of people in this community that have made it so great. Lord, I thank you for this council, the decisions that they make and their diligence to try to make our community the best it can be. And I pray that you would guide and direct the proceedings this evening, that you would help decisions to be made with wisdom. And Lord, that you would continue to bless our community and our state in these upcoming days and weeks. In the name of Jesus, we pray this. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for joining us. Got to see you twice in one day. Roll call, please, Bev.
Mayor Kavanaugh,
Here.
Vice Mayor Leger, Councilmember Magazine,
Here.
Councilmember Yates,
Present.
Councilmember Hanson, Councilmember Brown is absent, Councilmember DePorter.
Here.
All right, we will start with economic development. I'm going to talk about our economic development meeting in Phoenix. This month, our entire meeting was about different strategies for assisting businesses that want to export their products to other countries. While I'm very supportive of this endeavor, I question whether there was any effort to encourage businesses that were moving their manufacturing plants to other countries and the jobs along with it, and then shipping the product back here. While the Arizona Trade and Investment Office is only focused on export products, a representative from GPAC, Stefan Frehia, told the group that his office was working on that end. When they hear about a company ready to move their plant out of the country, they meet with them, offer them alternatives to them leaving. The good news is that many that have moved out of the U.S. have moved back, especially technology companies. They were too vulnerable in foreign companies to cybercrime. And that is my report for that. And now we will have presentation by Recreational Supervisor Rachel Goodwin and Tourism Coordinator Grace Rodman-Guder regarding the Town of Fountain Hills tourism website.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're here for a quick update tonight. Just as a recap, when the tourism program came to the town, along with it became a website. That website that we received was a bit dated, and we worked to upgrade it with new photography, a cleaner, more contemporary look, and a more appropriate navigation. But with that said, we were a bit limited. It was still limited on functionality. Editing was difficult, therefore it made it difficult to keep it up to date. And the platform it was built on was sustainable to hacking and ultimately crashing. So in the fiscal year 16 budget, we were allocated funds to redo and rebuild our website. With that, I'm going to have Grace be your tour guide tonight to show you the newly launched tourism website.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council. As a member of the tourism division, it is my pleasure tonight to unveil to you the completely redesigned tourism website, experiencefountainhills.org. I promise to keep my stewardess training from ASU to a minimum. All right, let us begin. As Rachel mentioned, the tourism website Experience Fountain Hills has recently undergone a complete redesign and a major overhaul. Let us discuss for a moment some of the reasons why we decided to do a complete redesign. Why rebuild? First and foremost, it had dated navigation and a dated look. There was a lack of user-friendly tools and navigation. We needed to improve the administrator tools and functionality on the back end from the platform because staff are the ones who manage the website. We do not outsource this to an outside company who manages content, photos, events, listings, etc. And so we needed to be comfortable in the functionality of the platform. We needed to work on updated Meta and Google search engine optimization, functionality, and standing. We also are always striving for the continuation and support of our program branding initiative. We've spoken to you many times before about how important it is for the tourism program to brand Fountain Hills and to brand what we're doing with tourism. We want to maintain that image and how we are reaching both residents and visitors. So some of the new features that our new platform thankfully incorporates. Much of this is due to a very wonderful company that we were able to contract with. I know as soon as the word website rebuild comes up, it brings many scary thoughts and months of headache, but thankfully we were able to work with a wonderful company who allowed us to do the rebuild in 8 weeks, which is almost unheard of. They just were seamless and wonderful. So some of the new features include a completely new look and feel, which we'll explore here in a moment. It is now optimized for mobile viewing, so you can pull it up on mobile devices, phones, iPads, tablets, and it does function on all different operating systems. Users can update and add their own calendar listings. Business owners can update their own business listings. This is incredibly important for all of our stakeholder initiatives. We want to make sure that our restaurant owners, our hoteliers, folks who own tourism activities and programs, all of our partners have stake in the website. They also can use the website and update their listings. It is redesigned special event calendar to be more user-friendly. It has clear navigation tools. It is fully integrated, all of our social media channels. And last but not least, it does include complete Google Analytics, so we can monitor the traffic that comes through the website. Let us now take a visual tour of where the website has come from and where it is today. This is a screenshot of the 2014 design that was handed to us from the Chamber of Commerce just before the program was turned back over to the town. As you can see, it has a wide photo, what we know as being Fountain Park, but you cannot see the base of the fountain. That can be a little tricky to folks who are new to the platform. It has limited navigation and a few integrated social medias. Just after Rachel and I had inherited this, we did a small project to work mainly with the cosmetics of the website that brought us to what I will refer to as our 2015 website, which you'll see on the left here. On the right, we compare the redesign, which was launched just about 10 days ago. It's our 2016 website. We have embraced a completely saturated look that goes along with our branding initiative. A beautiful picture of Fountain Park. It's a little more colorful, it's a little deeper. This next slide also compares the two home pages. The left, our 2015 site, the right, our 2016 site. Again, we continue this saturation of color and look. We incorporate the tourism logo. What Rachel and I found, not only navigating the website ourselves, but through the feedback that we received from outsiders, is that, as I will lovingly refer to as the Brady Bunch grid effect, can be a bit confusing, especially for folks who are navigating the website for the first time. And so we decided to move forward with a new model that highlighted a few bigger things that go on during the season, which we maintain full control of. We change those seasonally based on what's going on. Then below, we also highlight the special events calendar, and next to it, our social media. We want to hit people on the homepage with what we feel is the most common information they're looking for before they even think to navigate. This next slide compares the two special event calendars. Again, we continue with a saturated look. The look on the right shows the listings to be a little more robust. They show a bit bigger of a thumbnail to give you an idea of which event is which, before you then navigate deeper into listing pages. All right, here's for my favorite part. Actually, just before we jump into that, the photo you're viewing here is another interior page that has just a little more text, so you can get a feel of what some of our more informational pages look like. But now we'll go to my favorite part. We will actually navigate to the website live, and at this point in time, I would love to take any questions.
Madam Mayor.
That's it?
Yes, ma'am?
You ready for questions?
Yes.
All right. Councilman Yates.
Thanks. Gracie, great job as usual. We appreciate it, and I know that you're very good at this. So,
Yeah.
asking, do you have any metrics so far from the old and new?
The metrics are live. What Rachel and I had discussed today is that with only a 10-day launch, we weren't sure that we had the full picture of the transition of the website. What we would like to do in our next tourism update is probably compare March of 2015 versus March of 2016, because it's one of our heaviest event months, and it also encapsulates this time just about 2 weeks after launch. I feel that that will show a bigger picture of the effect that this redesign has had. But the Google Analytics have been live since the website has gone live, so we have lost absolutely no traction.
So, if I may, Mayor, along those same lines, could you tell us how good we are doing with between old and new, and what kind of metrics that we are experiencing? Because I know we're experiencing some record numbers with record events and things of that
Right.
nature. Thank you.
Sure. Every day we see that people are visiting on your three most popular platforms. They are coming mobilely, on tablets, and on desktop. It's important that we know that we're reaching everyone on those platforms. Our bounce rate is fairly low. I believe that we are performing above the national average. And I want to say traffic is in the 400s per day.
Could you quantify what bounce rate is? And
Absolutely, I'd be more than happy to. Bounce rate has to do with the time spent. People hit your website, and do they leave right away, or do they navigate further and they explore other pages? And so we're constantly measuring whether people are simply landing and going, oh, this is beautiful, and then they leave and hopefully never go anywhere else. That's a very dirty term. Hopefully they are landing going, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Wait, you have arts and culture, and they go deeper.
excellent.
Rachel, did you want to add something?
I was just going to, if there was additional questions, I was just going to add that we've also noticed that while our bounce rate is significantly improved, the way that people are moving on the page is improved as well. We're seeing people spend more time on the homepage and not having to dig and dig and dig and click 3 and 4 and 5 times to get to what they want, which tells us that the design that we have here is functioning exactly as how we intended it to. The other interesting thing is when you look at the top 4 places that people are coming from to find us, actually one of their top 4 is out of LA. It's Phoenix, it's Fountain Hills, it's Los Angeles, and then I believe it's Mesa is our 4th. So it's kind of interesting.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well, I know that the website is reaching a lot of people, especially young people who everything is on their phone. So they
Yes.
want to know what's going on. What are we going to do this weekend? They take out the phone and let's see what's happening around town. And then a lot of this pops up. I know you're also on WhoFish and all these other sites that are listing the activities, and Fountain Hills is always right in there. Besides the fact that you're at all the events. And I think that's important because some people, a website's not enough. They go to the event. They want to see you there. They see the booth. They have paper material. They get these lovely little bumper stickers. And I love these. And I've already seen these on cars around Fountain Hills. And the other thing I'm seeing is, and I got a lot of them, these. Everybody is crazy about these bracelets, especially the kids. And if the kids wear them, they're still advertising. So I wore these to my mayor's lunch today, and everybody was saying, oh, we should have brought some. So I'll have to bring some to them next time, because even the adults want them.
Wonderful.
But all of this combined, the website, the paper that some people want, the presents, the little giveaways, it's all making us shine. And you ladies are doing a fabulous job. Fabulous job. Yeah. Councilman Yates.
Madam Mayor, where can we get our own bumper sticker?
The same place you can get your own bracelet.
Ladies, where might that be?
Well, how wonderful of you to ask. It just so happens that first thing Monday morning, we'll be getting a brand new shipment of those stickers. You can pick them up in Town Hall. And we always have a stock of our rubber band bracelets, again, that you can pick up in Town Hall. But what I really hope is that you will come visit me at a special event, come to our big blue tourism table, and you can always pick them up there. With the special events calendar, which I might add, as a side note, we gave away over 500 at the fair.
Wow. You did really well at Concourse, I know
Yes.
also. Yeah, that was a huge event with a lot of people who some are actually thinking about moving here. Yeah,
phenomenal.
So that's awesome. Anybody else? Vice Mayor Leger?
Thank you, Mayor. I've been here through the transition from when we had a vendor doing tourism, 2 vendors, as a matter of fact, and as the mayor stated, you folks have done a tremendous job in terms of growing the project, the website, just your presence in town, and kind of deferring to Councilman Yates, one of his favorite terms, metrics.
Return on investment.
That's where I want to go now. And I understand I'm not putting you on the spot. Is there a point at which, from a tourism perspective, and I know this is incredibly hard to measure, where we can start looking at economic impact?
Absolutely. One of the ways to look at economic impact, it's a project that Rachel and I have already started to undergo. We've started to develop economic impact studies on the special events.
Okay.
And what it does is it correlates the amount of collateral that we ourselves give out at the events, but then hopefully through the cooperation of our partners in special events, we can measure attendance. We reach out to our hoteliers, make partnerships with them so that they can relate to us their hotel bookings over specific dates.
Sure.
When you pull all of that together, it is my hope that that data from year to year to year, especially with our seasonality, will show us the growth.
Very good. I think growth is important, but at some point in time, it would be nice to attribute that to dollar signs. And I know that there are models out there, Scottsdale Convention, you guys are familiar with that. So great work, and look forward to seeing some of those numbers down the road. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you very much. And we are at call to the public.
Mayor, we have 6 cards.
Okay?
Donna Brinkman, followed by Ted Blank, Bob Wilson, Tate Elke, Jenny Dickey, and Mr. Williams.
All right, start
It'll be
with
Donna Brinkman.
Donna. And just a reminder, don't give your actual address, just say Fountain Hills, be from Fountain Hills.
Mayor, council, my name is actually Donna Brinkmeyer, and my husband and I have a house that's up on the hill above Fountain Park. I'm here tonight representing many people in the community who are concerned about the bollard lights in Fountain Park, and I would ask them to stand up now if they would, please. Thank you. I want to begin by saying that we are not opposed to a lighted walkway in the park. Quite the contrary. Appropriate lighting would greatly enhance the pleasure and the safety of those enjoying the park after dark, myself included. But the uplight and glare produced by the bollards is simply not appropriate. Like many others, my home is 50 feet above the park. As I look down on the Fountain Park, it now looks like a landing strip. Each of the 278 bollards reflects light up into the sky from its supportive base. Furthermore, as one drives along Panorama Drive from Sahara, the bollards reflect light into the eyes of the drivers to the point where it's difficult to see the road. Those walking around the park are blinded by the glare from the bollards, destroying their night vision. Before the bollards were installed, you could stand in the park and look at the Milky Way stretched up across the heavens. Now, only perhaps a dozen stars are visible from the millions that were visible before. You have it in your power as the council to eliminate the uplight and glare, to regain the night sky, and to make it safer to walk or drive around the park. The light from the bollards needs to shine onto the path, not into the night sky, not onto the street, and not into the eyes of those strolling around the fountain. If you will look in the folder that we handed you, it is open to a picture that looks like this. This picture clearly shows that you can have good lighting on the path without glare and uplight. If you look at the little red circles, those are the parking lot lights on Panorama. Look at them at night. You can't even find them. They're not there. By contrast, the bollards are visible from a half a mile away. No one intentionally set out to select pathway lighting that would produce uplight and glare. The mayor herself wrote to a resident on January 20th, 2015, saying, quote, "The plan calls for short bollard lights that direct a low-level light only onto the pathways," end quote. In addition, town personnel sought assurances that the bollards met with International Dark Sky Association standards, but the town did not get what it was sold. The lighting designer sold the town lights that did not match the public specifications on which everyone relied. The bollards produced uplight and glare. We ask you to hold the lighting design engineer responsible for rectifying the problem before it's too late. Thank you for listening to us and considering our concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Ted Blank.
Ted?
Mayor and council members, good evening. My name is Ted Blank. My wife and I have a house here in Fountain Hills, and we walk around the path almost every night around the lake. I'm speaking tonight in support of Ms. Brinkmeyer and of everyone else who simply wants fully shielded lighting around the path. Fully shielded just simply means that the light would shine down onto the path without any being reflected or shining directly onto anybody's eyes or onto any homes. This is definitely the kind of light we ordered, but it doesn't appear to be the light we got. We certainly started out with the right intentions, as Donna said. According to town records, we ordered lighting bollards described by their manufacturer, Acuity Brands, in their published specifications as, quote, full cutoff, zero uplight, and nighttime friendly. This amounts to a promise that no significant amount of light, either direct or reflected, will be emitted from the fixtures above horizontal. That's how these particular fixtures got onto the International Dark Sky Association's approved fixture list. If these claims were true, then people walking on the path or enjoying the nighttime view from their homes around the lake would not see any white light emanating from the bollards themselves. They would just see a gently illuminated path. But as you've seen in the photo, that's not the case. In an email dated January 24th of this year to Christian Monrad, a highly respected Arizona lighting engineer, the manufacturer of our lights confirms that their own glare and reflection tests were done on bollards finished in black. This, of course, minimizes the amount of light reflected from the shiny surfaces below the LEDs. Furthermore, when their tests showed that the bollards reflected some light even with a black coating, they decided that was too little to worry about. They changed all those values to 0 in their published specifications, meaning that the lighting designers who depend upon these specifications to tell whether there's going to be light reflected up or out from the fixtures were misled by the manufacturer's specifications. They called it something called photometer noise. I'm not quite sure what that is. But the lighting engineers we hired for this purpose, I think, should have seen all those zeros as a big red flag and said, this can't be right. I'm including copies of these emails in the packet that we've offered you tonight. The manufacturer also makes no attempt to warn potential purchasers that the lighter colors, especially our aluminum finish, would reflect a lot more light than the black finish. My own measurements show this to be about 10 times the amount that the manufacturer measured. And I've provided these results to the town staff. What's especially sad is that the light that's reflected from these shiny surfaces never touches or illuminates the path at all. It goes up into the sky, into the eyes of people walking around. It's completely wasted, provides no benefit, and we pay for it. It's not a question of brightness. Cutting the brightness of these bollards in half would not change the apparent perception of glare by the folks who are walking or living around the light. And of course, we think that the lighting engineers should have been more aware that they were placing these lights into the darkest part of a very carefully dark protected town, where the slightest amount of light will be seen against an almost black background, and that high contrast makes it very difficult. So I urge the council again to demand that the companies we hired to design the lighting take responsibility for repairing the problem and replacing them with fixtures that are full cutoff and send light no place but onto the path. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ted. Next.
Bob Wilson.
Good evening. My name is Bob Wilson, as you heard. My wife and I have lived in this special town for 3.5 years. We were introduced to its beauty by our son.
Pull your mic down.
We were introduced to its beauty by our son, who was a librarian here in Fountain Hills. He was also instrumental in instituting the popular stargazing program outside the library, and that's how I got involved in Dark Skies. I am a member of the Dark Sky Committee, which consists of several Fountain Hills residents, including 2 former mayors. And it was formed last June to develop an updated lighting ordinance. This is a necessity due to significant advances in lighting technology, which is at the heart of the bollards issue. So I have a timeline here. In the very brief time I have, my goal is to show what brought us here tonight. Almost 20 years ago, a town master plan was developed which included a lighting of the Fountain Park path. As far back as November 27th, 2013, Donna, who just spoke, wrote a letter to the town council pleading that all options be considered so the lighting met the town ordinance and preserved our dark skies. So that was almost, it was 2.5 years ago. January 20th, 2015, this year, Mayor Kavanaugh confirmed this in a letter to a resident that the plan called for just that. On July 1st this year, the lights go on, or last year, the lights go on at the park. On July the 5th, the Dark Sky Committee agrees to meet with the mayor to discuss Ted's technical report, which is very similar to what you have in your folders. It's been updated. But the report includes the failure of the new technology in our fountain lighting. And it also discusses the fact that the supplier misrepresented what we paid, whatever it was, $400,000 for. July 12th of 2015, letters to the editor of the Fountain Hills Times start with complaints about the lighting. They continue to this day, including a recent one from a local 6th grader. August 28th last year, we had a dark sky email exchange that came out of the one of the astronomy magazines. Davis, California spends $350,000 to replace wrong new technology lighting after only 6 months in service. So they had the same problem we had, or have, I should say. That was in August. So we had that discussion with the dark sky. Last December the 12th, 12/3/15, Donna's letter to the town with 45 Fountain Hills residents signed the letter asking what the town's plans were to fix her/their problem. 12/17/15, last December 17th, Ted's draft report to Grady Miller suggests potential problems with lawsuits, assured the town that the supplier had misrepresented the product and must be held responsible. That was December 17th. The draft report was sent to Grady Miller. On the 29th of December, town's response to Donna's letter of the 3rd effectively said that there really wasn't a problem, but that the town would try to look into doing something that could help. However, the town's technical interpretations were incorrect, and that's been shown by the professional engineer from Tucson who read the letter. January 11th of this year, Ted and I met with Grady and his staff. The draft report to Grady was so everybody could be prepared for that meeting on the 11th. But it was effectively the same response. No problem. Again, the same kinds of things took place at that meeting. Town's technical interpretations were incorrect. We haven't heard anything further after that meeting, never saw any minutes or anything. 17th of this month, Donna's letter requesting an update to her 1229 letter from the town. She hasn't gotten anything since then.
Bob, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're way over time.
I have one last sentence.
Go ahead, finish up.
That brings us to March 3rd, 2016. You are our last resort.
All right, thank you.
Tate Elke.
Mayor, Council, Madam Clerk. Promise not to go over, so I'll be brief. But you only have a couple items on the agenda. My name is Tate Elke, resident of Fountain Hills, attorney in town, and of course, former council member. I was approached by many of the folks that are here this evening to talk to you, to just kind of talk a little bit about the bollards down at the park. I was approached not necessarily as an attorney, but as a fellow resident, and also many of the folks that are here speaking are in favor of bringing an observatory to town, so they're part of that group as well. So obviously they have an interest in that regard as well. So when they approached me on this, I had a chance to look through the documents and everything that they've provided, the engineer down in Tucson that's been referenced, and it appears to me that the town may not have received what it was sold. And from what it appears is that either the manufacturer or the designer may not have provided exactly what the council was told, because obviously I know you as a council, and we had talked about this item before I left the council, and our desire was to light the path so that people could see at night, so they could walk at night and enjoy the park at night. And what we have is more than just a lit path. So I would urge the council to perhaps in item 6, when you have the opportunity to direct staff, is perhaps agendize this item in the future so that some thorough discussion, perhaps with the town attorney, can look at the contract that you had with the designer as well as with the manufacturer, because if the town didn't receive what it's paid for and the tax dollars that were used, the residents' tax dollars that were used to pay for this, we want to make sure that you hold them accountable for that, because the residents here, the people here and the people that live around the park, or those that have concern, don't have any other remedy. The only other remedy besides coming to the council and asking you, who have standing to enforce this, would be through the courts. And this council has done a fantastic job of avoiding litigation, and they don't want it. And I'm not here to threaten or imply that in any way, but this is really the only remedy that these residents have. So if the council could, put this on an agendize this in the future, just so that there can be a thorough discussion on this, and of course have town attorney look at the contract, have the engineers look at it, and I'm sure this fine group would be willing to donate any time that they could to help in support of that. And lastly, just to strongly emphasize, as you've heard, you didn't hear one person say, rip these bollards out, rip the lights out, go back to what it was. They want the lighted path as well. They just want to make sure that the council and the town is getting what it paid for. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Jenny Dickey.
Hi, thank you. Happy birthday, Cassie. Jenny Dickey, 32-year resident, and just wanted to talk a little bit about the legislative item. In a letter yesterday that I put in the Times, I objected to the way that the agenda item that we created as a council is being manipulated, where I believe discussion is being discouraged and input is being discouraged on legislative items. Most blatant example of that last time was when Mayor Kavanaugh unauthorized refusal to allow Councilman Leger to engage Captain Letourneau regarding her husband's bill, which did pass today in the Senate, Senate Bill 1257, which forces Fountain Hills and other towns to allow guns in public buildings or face prohibitive costs. I have some questions that may have been addressed if law enforcement had been allowed to be free to respond. For example, what kind of firearms are allowed under concealed carry permits? And are there minimum or maximum age requirements? What is the extent of the background checks? You've probably heard that neither of the shooters in San Bernardino or the Uber murderer had criminal backgrounds. They were what the mayor and others call law-abiding citizens right up to the minute when they weren't. What does the data reveal about the good guy with a gun scenario? We read studies, including from the FBI, that do not indicate success in those situations. And on the contrary, several simulations have poor outcomes, and statistics show a relationship between fatalities in general, including suicide, and access to firearms. I would have asked, what is the amount of training needed to react appropriately? The mayor noted that the permit does need to be renewed, but does law enforcement ever feel that one and done is sufficient for even a short period of time? Do they feel that the training a concealed carry permittee receives equals the expertise and constant practice and experience they gain by being a professional police officer? And as police, are they concerned that they won't know who the good guy is during these situations, and are they getting additional training to prepare them for these situations? The Times reported this week on potential Fountain Hills budgetary shortfalls. Residents who believe that at least some of their income and sales tax that they pay to the state come back to our community. They're being betrayed by a legislature that's so ideologically motivated, and they seek to control the day-to-day life here in Fountain Hills. Considering that this is just one of the bills, over the years, we've talked about time and time again that either mandate or prohibit certain town activities under penalty of withholding revenue from us or making us pay them, despite the fact that they chronically divert our road funds, makes this, regardless of the issue, whether it was guns or anything else, very much a local concern. I'd like to ask council to please oppose, as we have in the past, all these efforts to thwart our community's right that I feel we have to self-determination and perhaps pursue home rule at some point. Thanks.
Anybody else?
C.W. Williams?
All right.
Mr. William?
Mr. Williams, D.W. Williams, 32 years, Fountain Hills resident. I gave you two handouts. You could follow along with me if you want. First, I want to say, offer my appreciation to the council member and the staff that have looked at some things that I've shown them, and I think it's taken a lot of courage and integrity on their parts, and I want to thank them for that. This first one that I'm going to tell you about is tomorrow. There's going to be a community protest rally that will take place in front of the Fountain Hills Chamber at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I've notified all the media in the valley. And the purpose of the rally is we believe the Fountain Hills Chamber's Congress is not protecting Fountain Hills citizens during special events relating to fraud and crime. They have outdated methods of tracking vendors. We've made complaints to the chamber, and they have completely ignored our complaints. The reason they've given me is we protect those who pay us. We are a business that protects members. We do not have a community public responsibility. The city requires liability coverage for the rental of the property, outdated coverage, no electronic scam protection for those who attend special events. Senior citizens and all others who attend chamber-sponsored events deserve protection from potential fraud and crime. The CEO is not concerned with our community. We are a private business. Our funds come directly from the vendors. We promote, sponsor, advertise, and host some of the largest events in Arizona. We do not cross-reference with other chambers. Why not? We are a private business. We are not the city. I am only accountable to my board of directors. Go away, Mr. and Mrs. Fountain Hills residents. We will file legal action if you continue to harass us by asking questions. The purpose of the protest is to hold the chamber accountable for alleged violations of fraud and possible criminal conduct by a vendor member. We ask the media to contact individual board members and ask why are they refusing to listen to a valid complaint. The president and CEO have a valid written complaint. Instead of wanting to work with the community, the CEO and president are behaving with silence and threats. Why? Please ask for clarification to this question from any board member or the CEO. We will be on opposite side of the street due to the CEO threatening to make arrest for trespassing. Mr. Valenzuela, the CEO, writes to me, "This is my third and final request to cease and desist in your actions to contact staff, members, board members, etc. Effective immediately. You must stop making threats that will call or email the elected city officials or the Fountain Hills Times." So this went out as a public service announcement. The pink one you hear is a press release that will go out at 12:01 tonight to all the media in the valley. Do I have time to read this, or is my time up?
Your time is up, but we all have copies. So
We all have copies.
We will read it. Everybody has a pink copy? Yes, we all have
Yeah,
copies.
I believe there's some information in here that the city should be aware of, and I'm going to take my protest as far as I need to protect the citizens of Fountain Hills and all the other visitors that come to this beautiful city for a Frisbee golf tournament, a car show, a street festival, a music festival, and all the other things that the chamber promotes and hosts. I insist that they protect our citizens from these electronic scams. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, we have one more card. I think it's Clyde, is it Hertig?
So I've been a resident for about 5 years now, and I live across from the high school on Tumbleweed, right near the
Right
mayor.
around from me.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And just recently, since we've been talking about light, the high school, I believe this last year, bought a whole bunch of new LED lights for security. So the high school, I guess, apparently had some kind of problem with vandalism. And I've been in touch with the assistant superintendent, and we've had a number of discussions. And they have replaced, I believe, 6 of the lights to be lights that have cowlings on them. But in my last discussion with them, there's approximately, I guess, about another 25 or 30 lights that are, they're quite bright. They're a lot brighter than the ones at the fountain. These are security lights on the school, and they shine all over the homes and up into the sky. And of course, that is one of the reasons we moved to the area, was because it was a dark sky area. I know Ted moved here also because of that. And just a little side thing, I was thinking with the website that if you mentioned that it was a dark sky community, there are people that are interested in that and may want to move here or vacation here because of that. Anyway, back to the school. He did switch out some of the lights. He said the main problem is not the cost of the lights. I think he can switch them out for free. It's the labor to replace them, and he said they don't have money in their budget for that. So I thought I'd bring that up to the council. Perhaps you can speak with them or somehow figure out what to do with that, because the cameras that they have at the school are an old technology. He said they're the older cameras, so they don't have a very good ability to see in low light situations. So I don't know, he doesn't know how much light they need. He doesn't know a number of factors. He inherited the problem because those lights, he said it had been discussed with the dark sky community and I believe with the town hall, and I don't know. I don't know those parts of it, so anyway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But I can't answer them. Anyone else?
No, Mayor.
Yeah. You know, when everybody comes up, you're so tempted because you want to say something, but you know, call to the public, you can't respond. So just know that we listened to everything you said. I noticed that everybody took notes, so you were heard, okay? I'm sorry we can't respond. All right. Is that it for, okay. So we'll go on to our consent agenda items. We have 4. Can I get a, is that a call to the public or not?
No, it's on agenda item number 5.
Okay, then we'll go to our consent agenda items. We have 4. Can I get a motion to accept as written?
So moved.
And a second? Second. And I will need a roll call vote for this.
Councilmember DePorter? Aye. Councilmember Magazine?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Leger? Aye. Councilmember Hanson? Aye. Councilmember Yates?
Aye.
And Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Mayor, 6-0.
Thank you. And number 4 is discussion with possible direction to staff regarding proposed code changes. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, before you tonight is a request from staff to give direction and approve the rank and priority order that we have on a variety of different town codes that we asked you to rank. If you recall, back in November, we had a workshop on the town codes because there were a number, we were hearing from the council members and from the public that there were a number of town codes that were either out of date or were not business friendly or consumer friendly. So the council at the November 10th workshop discussed and came up with a number of what we consider housekeeping items that needed to be updated. At the February 4th meeting, we brought forth those codes and hoped that we were able to do that at that meeting as far as getting the priority, because there's going to be quite a bit of work involved in doing the updates, and so we wanted to make sure we had the priorities from the council. Because it was a daunting task, there were at least 22 town codes and various chapters related to those that would require to be updated. We came up with an exercise that we had the council members individually given, an exercise to go through and prioritize and rank these. So before you, in your packets, we have the listing, but unfortunately, my staff report references colors, and I notice in my packet it's in black and white. So if you look at your screen, you can see what those are. All the yellows are the ones where there's clear consensus on the town codes, and there are 6 where the council members clearly had consensus as their top priorities. The next tier are green, and there's 4 of those in that category. The intent of the council, they made it very clear that they want to address all these, so we're not saying that these would not be addressed at all by the council, but what we're suggesting is the first ones would be addressed would be the ones in yellow. Once those are done, then it'd be the ones that are in green. Now, if you recall at the February 4th council meeting, I believe Councilmember Yates and others said, well, what if we have some others that we wish to add? And I said, well, when we bring these back after you've ranked them, then you'll have an opportunity if you wish to swap those with the ones that are listed or add those, and the council will have an opportunity to vote on that. Okay. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Questions for Grady?
Madam Mayor?
Councilman Yates?
More probably just a clarification. So if we approve this, this just ranks them. It doesn't mean that the other ones won't be dealt with. And then at some future meeting, we'll come back and kind of list, here's what the old code was, here's what the new proposed is. We'll have some dialogue.
Correct.
I will say, if I may, Mayor, having worked with Councilman Brown, who's a builder, as you know, he wanted me to reiterate his desire, and I looked through this quite a few times and couldn't find it. Maybe Paul can help, is the area that addresses how they use utilities and driveways calculation within the disturbance envelope. was a big priority for him for builders. And it might be in one of the codes that's already ranked, but it's just a subsection of that. So I don't know if that's,
Andrew, yeah, that might be.
I went through this a few times and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it immediately either, but that is, it fits along with the 4 times the footprint disturbance language priority, which isn't one of the top ones.
But again, to reiterate, whatever we approve right now doesn't limit us at that next meeting saying, hey, since we're doing these 5 things, can we do, okay.
Okay. Councilman Magazine.
Grady, what do you see as the timing for the yellow group getting back to us?
Well, that's really more or less for the town attorney to tell us, because it's going to be him doing most of the work.
So the next meeting, is that fair?
He's almost done now.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, some of these items are going to be significantly more difficult than others, just because they're 30,000-foot ideas applied to specific code provisions. The idea here is, for instance, when we're talking about the concept plan process, we're not going to try and reinvent the wheel. We're going to look to other codes that we have with other municipalities we represent to see if there's better language to be able to borrow. And so in some of those cases, we may be able to propose an amendment fairly quickly, but then know that the process we'll have to go through is we'll come back to you all to see, I guess I should use the proper plural, all y'all, come back and make sure that you're good with it before we send it to P&Z. And we'll look for a motion to direct it to go to P&Z, go through the hearing process, and come back up as a code amendment. Because many of these are going to be zoning ordinance amendments. Some are actually town code amendments, and those will just be a one-stop shop with you. We'll bring it in a form that we think works. But all the P&Z ones will take a fair amount of actual process in addition to the drafting time. So we will diligently pursue these. Thank you.
Anything else? I just want to add my thanks to Councilman Yates and to Councilman Brown. They both have full-time jobs, and I think they neglected those quite a bit to work on this. When we first came up with the idea that we needed to sit down, we kind of looked at the two of them and who have this kind of background that they could look at the different ordinances and tell us, you know, with all their experience also with other cities, you know, what other cities were doing to improve this. So I know both of you worked really hard on this to get to this point, and so thank you. On behalf of the council, thank you.
Team effort.
Team effort, yeah.
If I could, there is one item that has yellow mark that was actually parked for further discussion that would be really good to have a little bit of direction before I try and figure out what to do with it. It is the reference to section 108, powers and duties of the zoning ordinance. It's the comment is remove interpretation and and the suggested solution is hold to the letter of the code, identify who should hold the zoning administrator position. Can we get some?
Madam Mayor?
Councilman Yates?
And council, if I remember, this is a situation where under unique circumstances, if there's an interpretation question of, hey, as a builder, I'm looking at this code saying, I think it means this, and the administrator says, no, I disagree with you, the way our code reads, any review or appeal goes back to the same person that I'm having a disagreement with. So we're trying to figure out how could, and we brought up, would the town manager be a good person? Who could theoretically be that if I'm looking at the code and I think it means X, the administrator thinks it means Y, well, the way our code reads now, then the default, if there's a disagreement, it falls back to the same person I have the disagreement with. So shouldn't it go to whether it be the town manager, or is there some other way that we can have someone else right above before we get to the point of disagreeing at a higher level?
Well, let me make sure I understand. Right now, as a matter of state law, the town has a zoning administrator who's designated with interpretations of the code. If there's a request to the administrator for an interpretation, it's rendered in writing, and the appeal of that is to the Board of Adjustment. And so are you looking for someone in between the zoning administrator and the Board of Adjustment, I don't know that we can do that. Or are you looking for someone different than the planning professional in town to be the zoning administrator?
From a matter of practice, and correct me if I'm wrong, again, if we have, and I don't want to use the word disagreement, and interpretation, that the way our code reads is that it defaults back to the same individual that we're having an interpretation disagreement with. You're telling me that the only avenue to clarify that is through a formal appeals process. I guess, but maybe before we get to that point, I think there is, what else can be done to avoid an appeals process?
We had a referee.
I will default to Cassie.
You volunteered.
Well, Madam members of the council, the state statute governs what happens when the zoning administrator makes the determination. It goes to the Board of Adjustment. That's just the law. So, and we have no power over that whatsoever. That is a state enabling act that we have to follow. So any changes you would make would have to be prior to the zoning administrator's determination. So it would have to be that the planning professional that you hire to be your planning director, whoever that is, or in this case, I think it's Bob Rogers, our town planner, that person wouldn't be your official ZA is really the way you'd have to handle it. That person's opinion of the code or interpretation of the code would be an informal version that would then go on to the official zoning administrator above them.
Again, if I may, Mayor, right now you're saying, and I didn't bring the ordinance specifically, and I can dig it out, but if my understanding is correctly, if we sat down with Bob and, hey, I think it's this way, the default is it still goes back to him. Before it goes to the Board of Appeals, there's no in-between, there's no, because I remember there was being a loop in that process that.
If there's an informal discussion and there's a disagreement as to interpretation of the code provides for an opportunity to request that the zoning administrator give you a formal interpretation.
Okay.
That formal interpretation
Comes from the same individual that.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's really only a function of the fact that you have one person.
I'm with you.
In many other cities, you would meet with a line staff person who would tell you the answer to it, and you might not like the answer, so you would ask the zoning administrator to give you an official departmental-wide interpretation, but you have a department of one.
I'm with you.
So that's why there isn't another person above or around that person.
But that's the example, so knowing that these are the cards we have to play, what's our best way to play them? Are you saying go right to appeals, or is there, since we only have a department of one, would Grady or the town manager or the town attorney or Cassie be the default interpreter?
I can answer two of those definitively. Neither Cassie or I would be appropriate for that. You can certainly change your code to designate your town manager as your zoning administrator, but then that puts him in the position of having to be the one to render the formal opinion. And in some cases, your town manager will have significant planning and zoning experience and be qualified to do that.
Mhm.
In other cases, the person won't. You know, we have town managers who never set foot in that realm, come from finance or other
HR.
areas. So HR. I wasn't going to go there. But in the end, what I see functionally happening is if Grady were, for instance, your ZA right now, he would rely upon Bob to give him an interpretation that he would make his formal interpretation, and you'd be right back in the same spot.
Again, if I may, Mayor, I apologize.
Keep-
Ultimately, based on what other not remedies, what other functions or structures could we have based on what we have existing right now? Is there someone else that can be brought in with our ZA to say collectively, hey, here's kind of what we think? I hear exactly what you're saying, but do you see the process like, okay, I'd like to do this project, and the ZA says, well, I don't see how this fits in. Well, can I get a formal, well, yeah, I'll write it down now. So we're appealing to the same individual who doesn't see where we're coming from.
Well, and that's what the Board of Adjustment's job is to hear that case and decide whether or not the zoning interpretation was correct and to render a final decision for you. So it's actually, as odd as it may seem, it's actually more streamlined here because you don't have to go through levels of staff members to get to the ZA. You have that person at the counter reviewing your plans with you.
In order to save time, I'll,
Anything else?
yeah, that was basically the issue.
Okay.
So
Anybody
is there
else?
any direction on how we would actually address that item? 'Cause that is one of the yellow items, that's why.
Other than maybe look at it to see if it needs to be clarified so that anybody coming into that situation knows that that path is an easier path.
Isn't there a cost incurred though?
For Board of Adjustment to the town, isn't it? I don't, oh, no, there is an application for that.
There's an application fee for,
Thank you, Cassie, I appreciate it.
absolutely.
Puts,
Is it nominal? What is it? It's $1,000, 2,000? Right.
that's not nominal.
Yeah.
400.
No, especially
That's a
for a
lot.
smaller,
Now, it probably, I wouldn't be surprised if it was $400 or in that range. It usually is a fee associated with what it's going to take the staff to put together that appeal, because that's what it becomes. Remember, the Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board. And so the evidence presented at the hearing before the Board of Adjustment is the entirety of the record. There is no other record allowed if the Board of Adjustment's decision is appealed by special action to the Superior Court. Then the Superior Court sits as an appellate court essentially over the Board of Adjustment, and it's on the record. No new information is allowed. So it takes the staff quite a while to prepare a thorough record that is basically the entire record of the decision. Now, if it was a simple one paragraph, it probably wouldn't be that much, but usually those are fairly involved when they get to that level.
if I may, Mayor. To Cassie's point, would it be appropriate to come to this board, to this body, before it goes to a Board of Appeal? Or are we getting into,
Only if you decide to dissolve your Board of Adjustment and sit as the Board of Adjustment yourself.
not in lieu of, but before?
No, only if you decide to
Okay.
dissolve your Board of Adjustment.
Throwing out ideas, Andrew.
The state statutes are very clear on that point. You can only have one Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
Okay.
But if you grow to over 100,000, then you can take review of the Board of Adjustments. But I don't think we're going to get there.
All right. And Madam Mayor, if I may, oh, I'm sorry, Nick, did you have something?
Let me go to Cassie.
Just something that, it wouldn't be right up front, but it kind, over the past few weeks, some things, issues we've had come up, kind of made me start thinking about some of the language that's in the zoning code. And it's where it says that in anything else at the discretion of staff. And that seems to appear frequently in our zoning ordinance. And I don't know how we could deal with that, but I think sometimes people that run into this, they think, well, we did everything we were supposed to do according to the code, but now staff is coming back with something that wasn't in the code, but it's at their discretion. And I think, going forward and just down the line, maybe kind of, keep that in mind as sometimes being problematic and causing new challenges that we would maybe like to avoid in the future. So I thought of doing a search in the code to just see how many times that appears, but I think it's in there quite a bit. So, I understand staff needs to have that ability, but it's kind of like a job description where you get, you have a whole list of things that is your job, and then you get to the bottom and it said, and all other things required by your boss. So it kind of leaves it wide open so that I think people can be like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna hear next. So maybe if we can just kind of, as our list will probably grow at the tail end as you accomplish all these ones at the front end, Andrew.
We are always happy to amend the code as directed because as you know, the council makes the policy and the staff has to implement the policy. And the clearer the policy, the better it is to implement. We're very happy to do that, and I, of course, teach a land use law class at ASU, so it's kind of my area of expertise. Ambiguity is a problem, though, and if we have something that leaves ambiguity, when we come back to discuss whatever text amendments we have, we'll talk about those issues then and see if we can figure out a way to resolve them.
All right. Councilman Yates.
Not to beat this in the ground, along those same lines, I was on planning and zoning when we came up with that, and the idea of that language was to help staff, to give them tools to kind of help things along, but to your point, it kind of worked the reverse, that it opened up some avenues. to interpret differently. I guess a question, you don't use a mission statement, and I asked Grady if we could add, defining what business-friendly is, or some sort of guiding principle. I know we have SPAC and we have all these other things, and I know codes and ordinances need to be black and white and less ambiguity. But if that language is in there, is there some other way that we can put some sort of guiding principle that when someone sits down with you, even if it's a crazy idea, it's okay, yes, but in order for that to happen, we need an act of Congress, we need this, whatever that path to success is, so that it's more along the lines of, yes, because we have the guiding principle or mission statement or definition of what business-friendly is.
Mayor, Councilmember Yates, I have no way of giving you a constitutionally sound way to have business-friendly incorporated into the zoning ordinance.
It's probably just SPAC is what we need to use, the adopted mission statement of the town, the adopted economic policy.
Well, but remember too, when we're talking about the zoning ordinance,
I'm with you.
have a state enabling act that frames exactly what your powers are. And so we can't dance around those much. And typically, the areas where we end up with interpretational issues, where we end up with the, as otherwise required, they were generally found in the areas of flexibility provisions, like the PADs, the PUDs, conditional use permits, where you don't know the facts of it until you get to it. And so we'll look at those to see if we can find a way to focus them more, because some of the code drafting that has happened more recently that we've done for other communities that I think is actually a very good thing is we've moved away from things like conditional use permits and moved more to approved with conditions, so that someone who wants to do that use can look at the conditions and say, if I want to do this in Fountain Hills, I need to check off 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And to Councilmember Hanson's point, as long as 5 isn't and everything else we tell you to do, then they have some certainty. And so we've been trying to do that in our code drafting in all of our communities when we are taking the opportunity. So I think we'll apply that same logic here to try and focus some of those things down to avoid anything that is left up in the air unless it has to be.
Not quite so open-ended.
Right. As a matter of fact, one of the things that's wide open in here that we're likely to leave is it's not allowed, and if it's not allowed, if it's not specifically allowed in the code, it's not allowed, is the general rule of the code, unless it's allowed by the zoning administrator. So that's flexibility you want them to have, because if we have 27 uses listed in a specific category, and then a very inventive person comes up with use 28 that really fits there but isn't on the list, the interpretation could be that that's similar enough to be in that category, and those are the kinds of things we want some flexibility with. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword, and a lot of your code was drafted at a time when the town was very hard on growth. Things were a little different then. So part of that is softening the edges of a code that was intended for other purposes. Like
And allowed is more friendly than disallowed.
Correct. It won't be quite as much the drawbridge approach.
Okay. Vice Mayor Lachey.
Thank you, Mayor. Andrew, you mentioned the word ambiguity not too long ago, and I noticed there was one on here that didn't make the top 6 or the top 12, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but I just want to remind my peers here that the sunset clausing of zoning, whereby we have an inconsistency between our zoning and our general plan, I think we really need to attend to that, particularly with a lot of the infill lots, where the zoning is X and the general plan says Y. And we may recall the lengthy discussion we had on that fourplex on it was indigo. So I really think that's an important one to address. But I'm comfortable with the work that's been done by staff and comfortable with the rating from council, and therefore I would move to direct staff, according to council ratings, to begin moving forward on these code revisions.
Any other discussion? Well, it looks like you can take one of them off, because I think they already did the signs at the amphitheater. So you have one less to worry about.
It wasn't in yellow, though, so it doesn't help me.
You don't have to worry about it. Any other discussion, questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Good discussion. All right, number 5, discussion with possible direction to staff related to any item in the League of Arizona Cities Weekly Legislative Bulletin or related to action pending before the state legislature. Grady.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, as part of our legislative review that we do at each of our council meetings, we did hear from 2 council members. The mayor brought forth Senate Bill 1350 that she wishes to speak on. Councilmember Alan Magazine also brought up House Bill 2482 and Senate Bill 1266 and Senate Bill 1257. With that, I'll turn it over to the mayor to go ahead and give her summary of Senate Bill 1350.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of a simple one, so I'll go first and then I'll go to Councilman Magazine. This is actually a good one for us. It's online home sharing. It has to do with Airbnb and other online companies that will help you to rent out your home. And as you know, we have quite a few of those here. And what this does is Airbnb actually came to the league and the legislature with this bill. They want to collect the rental tax for us and submit it themselves to the DOR. And the reasons they give for this is they want to maintain the privacy of those people that are doing business with them. So they would rather collect the tax and turn it in to the DOR. And this is actually great for us because, as everybody knows, if you rent out your home, you're engaging in a business here, and you are subject to our rental tax. And most people do pay their rental tax, but others, they just don't. They rent out their homes and they don't submit any type of a tax. And if you rent out your home for 2 weeks or less, you're subject to the bed tax. So if you're renting out your home for, we looked on some of the Airbnbs and they're like $4,000, that's 13% of that. That's a good chunk of change that the town is missing out on, whereas most people are paying it. So, I mean, it's only fair that if you have this, everybody pays. Anyway, if this goes through, then this is great because they're going to do it for us. We won't have to try and track people down when they're renting homes and not paying the tax. So it's a strike everything bill. It's proposed by Senator Lesko. And I know that the league is also working with them, with tax attorneys to get the language. So I just think it's a good one for us. Councilman Magazine?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
I use Airbnb a lot.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, this weekend I'm using Airbnb.
Okay.
And for those of you who have used it, I think you'll find it a very efficient, well-run organization. I'm really pretty surprised at how well-run it is, how efficient it is, and so on. And so if they will take this on, I think it's just fabulous for the town.
Yeah. There is something that they want in return. They want to put language in here that cities can't ban them from their city. So that's kind of the give back for that. I haven't heard of any city that wanted to ban them, but maybe there is one that is, and that's where that came from, so.
May- oh, go ahead.
No, if I may, I've read a couple of articles that apparently motels and hotels claim they're not feeling the effect, but they will. And when that happens, we may face a situation where we and other communities are being asked to ban them from the community. But to me, it's free enterprise.
Yeah, and this bill doesn't stop us from doing some sort of regulation. It doesn't take it completely out of our hands. We can still have some sort of regulation as far as all the rentals go, so. Anybody else have any comment on this one?
Just a
Vice
quick
Mayor?
comment. It's my understanding that the league supports this bill, as you stated, with some minor technical changes. So I think that's good that the league sees it as something that's positive and value adding for towns in terms of helping us with revenue. Thank you.
Good, okay. Anybody else? Okay, and that's the only one that I wanted to bring to your attention, because I'm always thinking of the revenue. Councilman Magazine, can I go to you now?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of pieces of legislation I'd like to address. The first one is Senate Bill 1257, which has passed, more commonly known as the gun legislation. And I'm sorry I wasn't here 2 weeks ago for the discussion, but I would like to take a couple of minutes at this point. It's clear to me we all want the same thing. We want public safety. We've established it as the #1 priority by the council. Every community, city community that I'm aware of establishes its public safety as their #1 priority. And if you look at our budget, we can certainly support that, since about 52% of our budget goes to public safety. Whatever disagreements exist, I think, is how best to accomplish this, how to keep the citizens safe. I don't question the motives of those who support concealed carry in our buildings, but I do question the logic that says that more people with guns is more protection, because history certainly has not borne that out. Mass shootings are by definition 4 or more individuals killed, and most mass shootings are carried out with semi-automatic pistols. Some with up to 19 shells. I have a printout that goes back to Columbine in 1999 that indicates that 35 out of 49 perpetrators used semi-automatic weapons. I fail to see how an individual with a regular pistol with concealed carry can begin to stop an individual like this. And I really don't see why we should be rolling out the red carpet to have more guns and potentially semi-automatic pistols in our library, our town hall, community center, and so on. I've heard some say that we don't want to keep law-abiding citizens from being able to conceal carry in our library, community center, and town hall. SB 1257 only allows permit holders who have undergone training in our buildings. 3 cases, of which there are many. Jason Brian Dalton, and I believe former Councilman Dickey referred to him. He's the Uber driver who killed 6 people using a semi-automatic pistol. Police spokesmen say that he had no problem in his background. Nothing would put the police, get the police to suspect that he would do something like this. He was law-abiding until he wasn't law-abiding. Christopher Harper killed 9 at the Umpqua Community College in Oregon. He had 6 guns, all bought legally, no police record, again, law-abiding until he wasn't law-abiding. Last one. Vester Lee Flanagan killed Roanoke, Virginia reporter and cameraman with a Glock handgun. He bought it legally, never committed a crime, wasn't mentally ill, law-abiding until he wasn't law-abiding. Well, you get the point. I think we have to ask ourselves, how much collateral damage, and I hate that dehumanizing term, will result as a result of shootouts in our buildings if we just open the gates for anybody who happens to have training, anybody that doesn't have a record, and so on. We're clearly all entitled to our opinions, but if public safety is really our #1 priority, I urge that we oppose Senate Bill 1257. Now, if the law were to pass, and if we're so concerned about public safety in our buildings, it seems to me it beholds us to take a serious look at doing what the law allows, which is to have armed guards at our buildings, and the mechanisms in which to be able to stop people with weapons. I know the cost could be prohibitive, but there's really no such thing as prohibitive. We're talking over $500,000 a year. I don't know where it would come from. I think we'd have to look to staff and say, if this had to be done, where would we find the money? We're already facing a $5.5 million cumulative deficit through fiscal year 2019 and 20. We have major financial problems. But at the same time, if safety is our number one priority, then we need to protect the public. So therefore, Mayor, I'm going to move approval of opposition to Senate Bill 1257, the companion bill, and suggest that we write to the governor and ask him to veto the legislation.
All right, there's a motion. Is there, I'm sorry? Okay. Let me just get my second.
Second.
You want a second? Okay. You have speakers on this item?
Mayor, we have two speakers who want to speak on those bills. Ann Schwiers and Richard Davidson. We also have 3 speaker cards that from citizens who do not want to speak, that do want the council to know they're opposed to 1257 and 2482.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to hold the council to further discussion, and we'll let the residents come up. Who's first?
Ann Schwiers.
Okay.
Hi. Mayor Cavanaugh. My name is Ann Schwiers, and I'm a Fountain Hills resident. I actually was going to speak on a couple of articles just quickly, or bills. And one, I'd like to strongly agree with Councilman Magazine and Ginny Dickey in opposition to the gun law, the open carry. I sent copies of gun myths to all of the councilmen and women because the facts just don't bear up any safety by having armed, trained civilians. In fact, just the opposite. Evidently, in 33 years, they have had no incidences of having an armed person interject and save the day. I also don't like the idea that the state can tell us we have to do that, but that's on another level. Because the state doesn't really like to have the federal government tell it what to do. So anyway, on the other one, I would like to strongly oppose the education bills that are sitting in the state legislature right now. They're retained on calendar. I believe it's HB 2482 and SB 1279 that would increase the empowerment scholarships. And I feel that the empowerment scholarships are a terrible idea. They're sold as helping poor people, but in actuality, this would give $5,000+ to every public school student to go to a private school, a charter school. And that won't help the people that are poor because the charter school or the private school is going to cost them $10,000 or so. So it really doesn't do that. I think it's a very thinly veiled effort to turn public education into market-based education, and I think that's a horrible idea. Our country proudly has public education that covers all people. And when we start messing with that, trying to make money off of it, I think it's a very poor idea. There also is a bill on retained on the calendar to cut the desegregation funding, and the money that they want to use that for other reasons, and the money that they will cut won't be made up for. So we're further cutting our education budget, which is a very bad idea. Because, I mean, how much lower can we go than, what is it, 45th or whatever? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Richard Davidson.
Hello, Richard Davidson. I'm a 13-year resident here in Fountain Hills. I'm very happy and gratified to hear everyone discussing the issue of guns. I've talked about this before. I guess what I'm asking for, without being obviously very well prepared, is for some representation. For representation of my views that there are just way too many guns in our world in general, but specifically in our community, in our state, and in our community, there's just too many. And they are presented as problem solvers. And I spend my day, I'm a teacher, fifth graders, and I spend my day looking into the faces and looking into the eyes of the children who look to us for an example, who look to us to lead, to model a way of life, to model a way of solving problems. And the people that come into public buildings, God forbid it should happen in schools, but, you know, children come into a lot of our public buildings. They look to us for an example for how to solve problems. And it just kind of crushes me to see and to think that they are seeing somebody with a gun on their hip saying, essentially, this is my solution of last resort, and my last resort is my not getting my way, probably. So anyway, thank you for the discussion and for spending some more time on this issue. I do feel that the people carrying guns, open carry is one issue. I know that this issue is also about concealed carry, but even with concealed carry, people find out and they know that people have the guns. So I feel that it projects an image of hostility and distrust, and it also invites, if we were to say, hey, this is okay, it invites kind of the yahoos that really think that this is something that should be promoted widely. They like to show off. They like to show that they have the guns available and that the guns are on them. And again, I just feel it's so inappropriate for most public buildings, and especially libraries and places that are frequented by children. And I just ask you to do whatever you can to maintain Fountain Hills as the image of Fountain Hills as a congenial and friendly and optimistic place to live and to do business. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, okay. I'll just clarify a couple of points that were made. First, about the empowerment scholarships. Charter schools are already considered public schools, so this would not be giving anything extra to charter schools. They're already considered public schools. This is for private schools and like that, okay? I'm always reluctant to talk about school issues for legislative bills, and I try to keep it so that we're only talking about town issues, only because I get concerned about the school is a separate entity, the school has its own school board, and they make their own rules, regulations, and I wouldn't want to do anything here. I mean, obviously they oppose this, okay, but if there was another circumstance where we weren't sure how they stood on an issue and we made a decision one way or the other, I wouldn't want to be in conflict with the school, because there is a line between we handle policy for the town and they handle policy for the school. So I did meet with Dr. Sweeney, the superintendent, to talk about this, and I wanted to explain that because I didn't want him to think that we were stepping on his toes and invading his territory as far as, you know, this is concerned. So I asked him, how did the school feel about this? And he said the school was opposed to this. And so I asked him if he would be comfortable with, not that we would vote either way, but let's say that we would vote on that as we support the decision of the school. So what I'm saying is that we're not really voting on an issue. We're letting the school vote on it, and then we're supporting the school. And it kind of maintains the respect of the two governing bodies.
Mayor?
So that's what,
Sorry.
as soon as I'm done. So that's what we had talked about, and I spoke with him on the phone yesterday. I spoke with him in person this morning, and he's very comfortable with that. He didn't want to tell us we couldn't do it, but he would like to maintain that separation also, and the respect of the two boards. So what I'm basically saying is, if the school says that they're against this and we want to support the school, then we support the school. Councilman Magazine, you want to talk on that one?
I didn't realize we were into that bill, because I have a few things to say, and I really disagree with that approach, and I'd be happy to explain why.
Why don't we do that motion?
It's
Yeah.
a motion on the floor, yeah.
Okay, and as far as the other one, I just wanted to make a couple of points that weren't brought up. We're only talking, this bill is only dealing with concealed carry holders. It has nothing to do with people wearing guns on their hips or anything like that. It is only people who have concealed carry permits. These are people that have been background checked, fingerprinted, and they also, in the classes, they get education and they get training. There are exceptions in this bill, and the exceptions are courts. Even if this passes the state, you still can't, if you have a concealed carry, you still can't come in the courts. You still can't go into areas in government buildings that are not open to the public. Police stations, jails and prisons, public transit, buses and trains, mental hospitals, all schools, colleges, and universities. And, of course, any building that screens applicants and doesn't allow them in and has the screening. So there's all of these exceptions. The bill passed through the Senate and goes to the House. Questions on this side?
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Yates.
would I be out of line if we asked for Captain Letourneau?
Captain, you want to come up? I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Excuse me?
Oh, I thought I heard something from this side.
I have a comment I'll make later.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I can answer some questions
Madam Mayor.
to the best of my ability.
If I may.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
He has a specific
For
question.
full disclosure, I own a 9mm. My wife's a concealed carry. She has 5 or 6 guns. On Tuesday, March 1st, about 6:30 p.m. in the Target Center, could you elaborate on what happened over there?
I can. There was an armed robbery at the Verizon store in the Target complex. A single male walked in. Strong arm robbery is basically what it's called, or he was armed with a weapon. He reached across the counter and grabbed 4 cell phones and then demanded the register open, where he got $200 cash.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, I don't expect you to know this, but do you know what Verizon's gun policy is?
I don't believe they're posted, but I don't think they want weapons in their store, but I'm not sure. 100%.
Specifically, if I may, Mayor, it is our policy not to allow firearms in any of our retail outlets. Verizon Wireless reserves the right to refuse access to customers if they bear arms in the store. I'm a simple guy, and I appreciate everybody's position, and I wasn't prepared to bring stats and all this stuff, but here's something that just happened 2 days ago. They've got a policy, no one's allowed in there with guns, and I believe they do have stickers on the door that says no guns allowed. So without sounding completely ignorant, how could this happen if a sticker on the door saying no guns allowed and someone walks in with a gun? And the only reason I'm bringing that up, I'm not trying to make a political statement or anything. I still don't understand, by putting a sticker or passing a law or ordinance, how you're going to stop anybody, crazy or not, walking in with a gun, and that's really my only point. Thank you.
Do you have any other comments to that, or?
It is, both sides give answers, their belief, their opinions. Both sides have strong opinions. At this point in time, I'm not going to give my opinion either way. I don't think, that's certainly not why I'm here as far as the captain in Fountain Hills. I have strong opinions also. The problem is, neither side has a good argument of how to resolve it. Taking guns away is not the answer. Letting guns in technically can be argued that that's not the answer either. Some of the incidents that were brought up tonight, two of which were brought up, were not shootings or mass shootings that occurred in buildings. One was the Uber. It's a society issue. It's a society problem. It's a mental health issue. It's a law enforcement issue. It's a court system issue. What's the answer? I certainly don't have it. I don't know who does. I can answer questions about concealed weapons carry. Those individuals at least do get training. They have training on how to use it, how to draw the weapon out safely, how to make sure it doesn't get taken away from you if somebody struggles to get your gun. At least that's training, and that's a start, and that's somebody that I would at least trust to have a gun in a building. And like you stated, Mayor, it doesn't count in a building like this. It doesn't count in the police station. But when you talk to churches and movie theaters and restaurants, a sticker on the window isn't going to stop a bad guy from coming in with a gun.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else? Councilman Magazine?
Captain, let's presume for a second that somebody walks in and doesn't have just a gun, has a semi-automatic pistol. And let's presume for a second that this person is a law-abiding citizen by every measure. And he walks up to the window and he hears that he has to pay $36 for his environmental fee. And he starts to question it, and it gets heated, and he loses it. He pulls out that semi-automatic weapon and starts spraying our staff with it. Do you think, I want to ask you this question, do you think somebody in the vicinity with a regular pistol can have any real effect on that?
I'll answer your question, but let me ask you a question first. If you're one of the people that are in the building that night or that afternoon with the angry customer, would you want a weapon or would you not want a weapon yourself?
That begs the question. That really begs the question. The question is...
I can't answer your scenario.
I know you can't. I know you can't. And I don't know the answers either. All I know is that adding more weapons in our buildings, as far as I'm concerned, can only result in more mayhem and more deaths. And that people who are innocent and in the vicinity are going to be in harm's way. And so that really concerns me. Let me just say one other thing. I'm sorry, it's not directed exactly at you, but Councilman Yates, I did watch the tape, even though I wasn't here. And I heard you talk about how you have concealed carry and your wife does as well, and you mentioned it again tonight. Let's not get waylaid. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. You and your wife, under this law, can have concealed carry and walk into the building. So nobody's trying to stop you or your wife from having concealed carry as long as it isn't in these public buildings.
Okay, anyone else? Did you have something?
There's a motion and a second?
Yeah, we're still having discussion. Did you have discussion?
I have a few comments, yeah. This was something that I brought up in our last meeting, and I just want to reassert that my position remains the same in opposition of Senate Bill 1257 for many, many reasons, including a prohibitive cost to provide security measures at each door in our municipal complex. Currently, we don't allow guns. I'm not sure what problem we're trying to solve here, concealed or otherwise. many expressed concerns of parents and other folks regarding firearms in areas where their children are. For example, the library, the museum, the community center specifically. And last but not least, kind of at a different level, I'm getting concerned about the continued erosion of local decision-making authority through state legislation policy that is overreaching. And I think that some of these laws, whether I'm in agreement with them or not, I don't think one size fits all. And I think that we should be able to make that decision. I've lived in Fountain Hills now for 25 years, and weapons have not been allowed in this building, concealed or otherwise. So that being said, my stand is the same as it was 2 weeks ago when we brought this up, and I'm opposed to 1257. And I just want to mention that this is not an assault on the Second Amendment, no pun intended. It's about common sense and discretion. And I think that people have the right to have guns. I think people have the right to have concealed weapons carried or otherwise. But it's about discretion. It's about where and when. And I don't think public buildings, specifically museums, libraries, and community centers are those places. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Hanson?
Just real quick to reiterate about the cost this would incur, that we would incur if we prohibited them. We pointed out before that the league supports, some potential laws and they oppose other ones. And just to remind everybody that the league did oppose this because of the cost that would be incurred by cities and towns.
And my last comment would be pretty much a personal one. As a woman, I'm a lot more vulnerable than any guy is that's sitting up here. I want the right to protect myself because unless the captain's willing to follow me around everywhere or have one of his deputies do it, there are many times when I'm alone. I go to meetings in Phoenix and I'm in underground garages, sometimes 4 levels under. We call that the dungeon. Those are quasi-government buildings. Upstairs in my office, I've had 2 people in my office whose names are actually on a list at the front desk that if they come in to see me again, I would ask Grady to come in and sit with me, or with one in particular, probably I would call down for a deputy. But maybe you big guys don't quite understand what it is to be my size, to be walking around in high heels and become a target. I don't want to be a target. I don't want to be afraid. I lived in New York City where I couldn't even have a can of mace, but yet I had to ride subways and buses, and I was afraid. I was afraid. And I don't want to be afraid anymore. And you can't be with me. You can't be everywhere. You're a phone call away if I need you. But I want the right to be able to protect myself. And I did the training, and I did everything that I'm supposed to do within the law, and I have a constitutional right to carry in this state. I could have moved to another state where they don't have this. I could have moved to California or still been living in New York where you can't have anything. Most of the states that have the strictest gun laws are the ones that have the most crime. So on a personal level, I want to be able to protect myself. And if my grandson is with me, I want the right to be able to protect him. And that's all this is about. It's about personal protection. And that's why I am in favor of this bill. So if there's no more comments, and no more speakers, we will call for a vote. Roll call vote, please.
Hold on. Madam Mayor, if you could reiterate the motion is to, just for the sake of the record, so everyone knows what we're voting on.
The motion is to oppose Senate Bill 1279 and any companion. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. That's the next one. 1257, and to notify the legislature and the governor that we oppose this legislation.
All right, there's a motion and a second, and can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Hanson?
Aye.
Councilmember Magazine?
Aye.
Councilmember Yates?
Nay.
Vice Mayor Leger?
Aye.
Councilmember DePorter?
Nay.
And Mayor Kavanaugh?
Nay.
Mayor 3-3.
Okay. So tie, so motion, Andrew? Fails, okay. Any other, did we get through all the bills?
No.
That were? Oh, the empowerment one. What number was that again?
2482 and 1279.
24,
2482 and 1279.
I think 1279 passed already through the Senate, so we're really talking about 2482. Okay, go ahead.
As counsel will tell you, I have vacillated on whether or not to bring this one up. But the more I thought about it, the more concerned I became. And I think it's much more than legislation that affects the school system. I think it affects this entire community. Little quick background, the Empowerment Scholarship Acts were established in 2011 to provide education options for special needs students who are outside the public school system. It has been expanded considerably over the years, and the bills are now pending provide money to all public school system students by 2018-19, that is K through 12, to allow them to use that money to attend private schools. I think this is going to have a profoundly negative effect on our school system, as well as Fountain Hills as a whole. We've often talked about the need to get more families, young families, into Fountain Hills. This legislation may very well take us in the opposite direction. This is a gift to well-to-do families. We have well-to-do families whose children are in private schools. This means they will get a check to help pay for what they're already paying for. And it will also help other families who would like to put their kids in private school. It will give them more money to do that. Who gets left behind? It's obvious, the lower income students. Some of the parents of these lower income students have worked 2 to 3 jobs. They can't afford to move. They can't just pick up and move closer to a private school. And they can't even afford transportation to get their kids to these private schools. We would likely lose good teachers, and we'd see a tremendous increase in the need for remedial education. The reason I am concerned about the impact of the town is directly related to economic development. We're trying to get new businesses with higher wages and young children to move here. Why would they come here? If I were thinking of expanding my business or creating a business, and I could get this money to send my kids to private school, why wouldn't I be looking at the location of the private schools and moving and setting up my business closer to those private schools? Right now, we have people who shepherd their children over the hill to charter schools. The 2010 strategic plan under the heading Education, Learning, and Culture and Strategic Directions says, quote, "We should partner with Fountain Hill Schools and other institutions to develop quality educational programming and opportunities. this legislation would clearly do tremendous harm to this effort. I guess I would contend if there's so much money lying around somewhere, I mean, I haven't heard about it, if there's so much money lying around, why not increase teacher salaries? Why not use it for books and other kinds of things? Why not use it for infrastructure? The state right now is 49th in the nation. 49th in the nation in terms of its contribution to education. As far as I'm concerned, this is all a deliberate strategy to undermine public education so as to have an excuse to go private. I too met with Superintendent Sweeney about this pending legislation. This is a quote. He said, "I don't want my tax dollars going to private schools at the expense of public schools." I'll conclude with just a few statistics that he provided me. Surrounding town starting teacher salaries are $30,000 to $33,000. Ours was $28,800. Now the difference may not sound great, but if you can go to a private school and make more money, you know, that difference percentage-wise is quite a bit. From '04 to '07, we had 2,400 students. Today we have 1,575. We have 147 students graduating this year. We only have 75 students coming in. That's a tremendous leakage of students. In my view, this legislation will potentially greatly harm our town. I think it starts a trend. We're already seeing a trend of students leaving, and we're not seeing enough young families moving to town. This is just going to exacerbate the entire problem. I think we have an obligation, yes, support the school system. Clearly, opposing this supports the school system. But we have to look at it for the good of the town as a whole. And I think this can only be detrimental to our future. And so therefore, Mayor, I move that we oppose Senate Bill 1279.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Oh, you want?
Who's
you
the
want-
second?
Just for clarification, I thought I had heard that 1279 had already
Yeah, I should have said
passed.
20, I should
So
have
it's
said 2482.
2482, okay.
Yeah, and, well, let me, if I could clarify, move to oppose 2482, but also to write a letter to the governor indicating why we oppose it and what the impact is going to be on Fountain Hills, particularly as we try to grow our community, increase our businesses, and increase the number of young families.
Okay. So is you still seconding that one? Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Wanted to just thank Councilman Magazine for bringing this up. It's something that, as you look through it through the lens of for me, having kids entering school and then looking at it through the lens of a town citizen and what's going to make our town succeed, I think this bill leads us down the wrong path in filling our schools with great students and getting the great faculty we need. So I am also very against this.
Any other discussion? The only last thing I'll say is that I think this bill is dead already, so, but it might be just, we could still pass it along, but I think it's dead already, and that it's dead because superintendents like Patrick Sweeney and others have brought out that there's a lot of problems with this that they didn't anticipate. Okay, can we, I guess we can do an all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is
Aye.
there any opposed?
Mayor, 6-0.
Okay, there you go.
Hey, in baseball, that's batting 500.
All right, we have number 6, discussion direction to the town manager. Well, we have none listed. Did you want something on the agenda items?
Along those lines of the Ballards, is that at this point? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was going to be get, just
Yes.
to make
Yeah.
sure, per the contract, that we got what we were supposed to get.
We will definitely
Yeah.
be looking at that and reporting back to council. Also, not to get into too much of the discussion previously, but staff has been trying to work and resolve this to the satisfaction and hopefully of the residents there. And the letter most recently mentioned, that was dated the 17th of February. We actually received it the 23rd, and we just had a letter go out yesterday giving the update, so.
Yeah, Grady's worked really hard on this. He's done a lot of investigating with the staff, and as you know, we've got so many other things going that, a couple of weeks going by that he hasn't quite responded with everything might just mean that he's gathering the information, so he is working on it. Anybody else have anything? Then we're up to our last activities, and I always give mine, if anybody wants to go first. Why don't you go first and talk about the gala? School gala, because I was going to mention that.
Sure. Mayor Kavanaugh, Senator Kavanaugh were also in attendance. My wife and I went to the Fountain Hills Parent-Teacher Organization for the Unified School District Gala at Fire Rock. Great event. They raised money to give each teacher $200 at the beginning of the school year to buy supplies that they're unable to get from the school district funds. They just do a really good job. The parents really step up with donations, and they are able to invest that money back into technology and school supplies that they're unable to give them. So it was a really nice event.
It was a lot of fun.
And it was a great date night for us.
Yeah, it was.
It's the last date night we had, and we looked forward for it to months, so it was great.
Yeah, good, okay. I had a meeting with the postmaster from Scottsdale and our local postal manager to discuss issues that have been brought to my attention by residents. We discussed missed mail days, wrong and late deliveries, long lines at the post office, and some other general complaints about a lack of responsive active action to their complaints. Postmaster took notes about each item. We discussed solutions that he plans to put into place. We will meet in the near future to follow up on the plans. And I want to thank all the residents who contacted me about the issues, because if I didn't have specific complaints, I wouldn't have had much ammunition to go into that to actually get the postmaster here. One woman in particular actually let me pass along her emails with all the difficulties that she was having, and that actually got the postmaster from Scottsdale out here. So I thank her for that. I attended the State of the City for Glendale, also our quarterly East Valley Mayor's Lunch, and School Coalition meeting just this morning, which is the anti-drug and alcohol meeting at the school. And that was it. You heard about the gala, which was a lot of fun. Anybody have anything else? If not, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?